I preach this a lot. We as realtors, we make money when we sell homes in our communities, in our areas, but I believe in win-win relationships. There's give and take, and we can't always be takers. And so we have to give back to the community, you know, to show them that we appreciate them.
You're listening to the Real Estate Sessions, and I'm your host, Bill Risser. With nearly 25 years in the real estate business, I love to interview industry leaders, up-and-comers, and really anyone with a story to tell. It's the stories that led my guests to a career in the real estate world that drives me into my 9th year and nearly 400 episodes of the podcast. And now, I hope you enjoy the next journey. Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 399 of the Real Estate Sessions podcast. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for telling a friend. I get to stay in Southwest Florida today. I know I'm central, sort of West Florida, but we're going to be talking with somebody in Punta Gorda, Stas Matias, who is a broker owner of Erin Catron Real Estate. Really interesting story about how he's become the owner of that boutique brokerage. We'll talk about that. And a lot of other stuff. I met Stas, through his engagement with Florida Realtors, and I got a chance to help out a little bit as well with their RE bar camps. So we'll talk about that as well. It's just going to be a lot of fun. Great guy. Let's get this thing going. Stas, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Going to be a lot of fun. I think I have it right here. We met about 7 years ago. And I know that because 7 years ago was my first RE bar camp with the Florida Realtors in August. And I think that's the day we first met, right? And it might've been the podcast session that we were both going to be in. Is that right?
Yeah, I think you're correct. I do remember it was at RE Bar Camp, and then you were doing a session on it, and I was fresh on the scene for podcasts, so I got to learn a lot from you because you had already started it off, and I was a novice.
Yeah, you were. It was just great. You had great questions. I'm trying to remember if it was the precursor to another tool that's out there, but it was an easy platform to get started on, which is what I always told everybody. Just see if you like it. Get started first and then go from there, right? Everything doesn't have to be perfect on the first few. In fact, I dread when people tell me, I just listened to your first episode. I'm like, why would you do that? That was a long, why would you, it was Jay Thompson. Nobody cares about Jay. No, so it's great. It's great to have you on here. You're in the Punta Gorda area of Florida, which Southwest coast like I am. I'm a little farther north at St. Pete, and then a lot of people might be farther south like at Fort Myers and Naples, but there's this cool middle section we're going to talk about in a little while that I don't want to say gets overlooked, but I mean, when you got Venice and all these other places in there that have got some really cool stuff happening. So we'll chat about that
here for sure.
Yeah, I agree. And some really cool beaches. So, but the first thing I want to talk about before we get too deep into that, right, is I want to know, are you a native of Southwest Florida? Did you grow up down there or did you grow up someplace else?
Though I do consider myself a Floridian because I've been through some hurricanes, I am not originally from Southwest Florida. I actually was born in Hoboken, New Jersey, and lived in Jersey City for a bit, and then navigated my way through my younger years in South Jersey. And I spent most of my adult life in Philadelphia before I moved here.
All right. Well, look, I think New Jersey is in a very interesting state, right? There are people there are North Jersey people, there are South Jersey people, and it's the real deal, right? Like you can help me here. I'll get the sandwiches messed up, but
if you hear line.
If you hear somebody call a submarine sandwich one thing, you go North Jersey, and if it's the other thing, they're South Jersey. What am I missing there? What are those sandwiches?
Yeah, I mean, some people, if you're in the North Jersey, New York, Manhattan area, they're going to talk about subs. If you're down in the South Jersey, Philadelphia area, we're going to call them hoagies. If you go upper New York into the Massachusetts area, that's where you hear more of the heroes. But yeah, if you're in North Jersey, you're talking about subs, and South Jersey, you're talking about hoagies. It's funny, but it's real.
Yeah. Then we were chatting a little bit earlier. You talked about the third part and that's the Jersey Shore, which very, very busy in the summertime. I know that because everyone's trying to get get some relief. Talk a little bit about that. Did you ever go hang out there in the summertime? Was there a place you liked best?
Yeah, so I absolutely love the Jersey Shore. I've spent many years on the shore, but it's a little bit different compared to like that TV show that you guys would see. So like that's more like in the northern part of Jersey, which I did stay for a little bit, like Long Branch, Monmouth Beach. That's further north on the Jersey Shore. But when I was a little bit older, I had purchased a condo down in North Wildwood, which is for almost it's down past Atlantic City, like it's way down there. So I
Yeah.
spent my whole summers down the shore. Just I was able to do business down there. A lot of my clients were vacationing there, so it was really easy for me to stay there the whole summer and just enjoy the summer, do some surfing, and then enjoy the beach.
That Atlantic, I'm going to ask you this question because I grew up in San Diego, so we're a little farther south than you. And the water temperature in San Diego, if it got to 70, everybody was like, "Whoa, it's 70." Now, now you know what I'm talking about here in Florida.
Yeah.
It's 70, it's too cold. No one's touching it because they're looking for 85. But what did the Atlantic get to? Like when you're surfing, it had to be a full wetsuit and everything. It had to be cold, right?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I
Okay.
remember, the summer would kick off in June, and I'd ride my motorcycle to my condo, and yeah, the water wouldn't get to 60 till about August, and then somewhere in that end of June, beginning of July was the jellyfish season. So I definitely didn't want to touch the water around that time, but typically I do a lot of my surfing in the August timeframe where the water was around 60, and then obviously you wear a wetsuit to continue into September. But by October, man,
Gotcha.
it's just way too cold.
You're out.
Yeah.
Everybody's out. No, I like that. That's great. So give me this is a question I ask a lot for a lot of different areas, and I've interviewed a few people from New Jersey. Give me the biggest misconception, right? And you can I'll let you pick. Maybe it's South Jersey because that's where you spend a lot of time. But what's the biggest misconception most of us have about New Jersey? I guess it could be Jersey Shore because that show didn't help. Right?
It was crazy. I had never heard this until I moved out of New Jersey into Philly. But everyone used to say that, New Jersey was like the armpit of the United States. Like it was just oil and there wasn't nothing great about Jersey. But a lot of people don't know that New Jersey was known many years ago for their beefsteak tomatoes. They
Ooh,
had they had a lot of agriculture land out there and farming, and they were known as the beefsteak tomato state for a little bit there.
nice. That's the Cape. Well, there you go. That I did not know that either, and I've heard that other comment before too. But I've now that I've been there, been through the state, it's beautiful. There's some great stuff there. So I think people have to get over that. I think a little jealousy maybe with that all that beachfront property.
It's
Good. So
expensive.
so yeah. So you end up you end up moving to Philly. What's 15-year-old Stas thinking about doing? What was the plan? Because we all have plans when we're at that age. Sometimes they work out. Most of the time, it's usually something else.
Yeah, I think I always thought I was going to be either an attorney or I was going to be some kind of investigator in law enforcement. I just
Hmm.
always felt that was a thing for me. That's why I when I went to the military, I took the GI Bill and I was a criminal justice major because I really thought I would either dive into law enforcement and, like I said, move into investigations, or maybe take it further and become an attorney.
So now this puts you at a different stage of your life. You serve and then you go to school. What was the first thing you did when you got that degree?
I didn't really do much with it. I did go into law enforcement for a little bit. I actually graduated the State Police Academy in Seagirt, New Jersey, which is on the shore. And I did that for a couple years. I kind of went into the Juvenile Justice Commission, working with juveniles at first for the state, And, I did a little bit of everything as a special assignment officer. So I did a little bit of the working in the prison and then working with the county sheriffs to serve warrants. So, it was a little bit of everything, but the forward movement for me was more leading me to internal affairs, and I just didn't want any part of that. And so that's when I decided I'd get out.
Yikes! Yeah, you hear that's a internal affairs means that's investigating
Other
your
officers.
fellow officers. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
look. It's necessary, but I can see why it's also tough, very tough. Yeah. So what? How do we get you down to Florida? Because you didn't do any real estate up north, but that happened when you got down here. So what was that transition like?
Yeah, it like everyone else, I moved down here because of the cold and the snow. I had a family that was here already, and long story short, we came down in 2009 for Christmas, New Year's, and it was already snowing blizzard back home in Philly. And so when I came down to Florida, I'm looking at manicured lawns, people just jogging with no shirts on. I'm in shorts and t-shirt, and I'm just like, man, what am I doing wrong? And so when I got back home, another blizzard had us stuck in the house, and I'm shoveling, and they're like, oh, it's forecasted to rain, so it's going to turn to ice. And I just remember me shoveling and throwing the salt down, and the next morning when I pulled my car out of my driveway, my front bumper getting caught on a snow pile, which is now an ice mount, and ripping off. And it was right then and there I was like, forget this, I'm moving to Florida, I don't want to do this anymore. And yeah, that's how I made my way down to Florida in 2010.
And so how did you choose? How did you end up on the? First of all, there's a lot of times when you're coming from the East Coast, up Northeast with New York, Jersey, Boston, all that stuff, they kind of end up on the Atlantic side. But you kind of broke the mold. You came over to the Southwest side in Punta Gorda. How'd you make that decision?
Yeah, I say that all the time. Usually everyone from the East Coast, they take 95 and they stay on 95, and
Right.
they find a place to live. To be honest with you, my mother, my aunt and my grandmother had already lived here. And so my mother just followed suit, and she purchased a home here, and she was kind of doing the snowbird thing. So what I did was I said, hey, why don't I just move into the property full time? I'll pay the mortgage while I'm there, so I can figure out where I'll pivot, if I'm going to go to Sarasota, if I'm going to go into Fort Myers. So that's kind of how I ended up here in Southwest Florida.
And you talked about Fort Myers and Sarasota, two bigger cities, right, down in the Southwest. But you've got to talk a little bit about Punta Gorda. Well, one, I know that they've had some rough times with hurricanes, because I'm relatively new. I've only been in St. Pete for 7 years, and everything tends to not come here. And I've heard the stories, even before you got there, like 2004 was rough, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, but what made you, what kept you there? Let's talk a little bit about where you live, because it's, I've gone through there many times. I love taking the 41 when I'm driving back from Fort Myers when I have time, just to
Yeah.
see these towns, right? Because they're cool. You talk about that.
So my mother had the home in Port Charlotte, and
Okay.
so which I'm not going to lie, I wasn't a fan of when I first moved here. I'm a city guy.
Yeah.
I'm hustle bustle, grabbing a cab, jumping on a train. Different types of restaurants all over, and I'm in Port Charlotte where I have to drive everywhere. So it was a bit of a culture shock for me for sure. But how I transitioned in Punta Gorda was I ended up starting my real estate career. And that had gotten started when my significant other at the time was working for a real estate brokerage. And she had said to me, look, my boss just made this much bananas on a sale. And I was just like, wait, what? I can do that. Like, I can do that. And so that's basically how I jumped into a real estate school. And I was going to a church around the corner. And one morning I just woke up with an epiphany to go and speak to this one gentleman at my church who was in real estate. And so I went and I spoke to him. And then that's when he introduced me to my first and only broker. He said, I got this couple that are revolutionizing real estate. I think you'll be a good fit. Let me introduce you. So we walk over before service. They introduced me, and it was funny because the gentleman that he introduced me to, I had just had breakfast with him the day before at the men's breakfast on Saturday. And
Wow.
he didn't tell me anything about real estate. He was just talking about he was from Oklahoma and they opened up a business and they're very successful and doing well. So it was just really ironic that he ended up introducing me to this gentleman and his wife, who later on became my broker.
So this would be this is the company that you're an owner and broker of now, right? They're down there in Punta Gorda. Is it Erin Catron Real Estate?
Yep, it's Erin Catron and Company Real Estate, and yeah, so it was funny. I met them on Sunday. Then I took my real estate test. I met them on Sunday, interviewed on Monday, took my real estate test on Tuesday, passed, started with them on Wednesday.
Wow.
It just happened. It was just like it was supposed to happen that way. And their office was in Punta Gorda. So I would constantly drive from Port Charlotte into Punta Gorda. And as I started to drive there and meet people, I started partaking in the downtown festivities and being a part of the chamber events, things of that nature. And so I
Hmm.
just fell in love with Punta Gorda. And so when I started closing on some of those commission checks, I just bolted out of Port Charlotte and moved into Punta Gorda.
All right. So now you're going full speed. I imagine that they were pretty good mentors as well. It sounds like they really knew what they were doing.
Yeah, I would tell you that his wife, Erin, the company's named after, Erin Catron, that's their last name. She was the broker and she was really great at sales. But me and her husband Dirk, we really connected. He was a coach, mentor. I mean, we would sit in the mornings and go over some Bible scripture sometimes, and then on top of that, he was just a natural salesman, and he and I were very similar on a lot of things. He just knew how to charm a person, and I think I was more of a city vibe. So I learned quite a bit from him on obviously listening more, slowing down, and not talking loud
Mm.
because apparently we talk loud up north.
Uh, has there been for you the chance to work with relocations out of the Northeast? Is that I think that would be a big deal because you kind of connect.
So I will tell you the bulk of my business is people from out of state. Like I that's
Okay.
that's the bulk of my business. I don't where I live is a very touristy area, transient. So, if I sell a house to someone, I would tell you within 2 to 5 years I'm selling it again. And so you'll see a lot of that business coming from out of town buyers. Now, as we discussed, that Northeast corridor, they typically like to stay on the East coast of Florida. So a bulk of my business, I would say, comes from the Midwest. They like to come down. The Canadian population as far and the Midwest, they tend to want to land here on the West Coast.
Yeah, yeah, we definitely see that here in St. Pete. Same thing. There's definitely a dividing line. It's probably right, like maybe in the middle of Pennsylvania. Who knows? They're going to split up the state of Florida. Good. It's really fun to I do a little digging and get to see what you're doing and how active you are, with the state in everything you do. There's the local association of the Royal Palm Coast. You're doing some great stuff there. You're definitely connected with Florida realtors. You instruct all over the state. So I know that required you to do an audition, right? They're very strict
Yeah.
about who they let teach. Yeah, so that's very cool. Talk about that. Talk about why that's important to you. It's because you are giving back, right? You don't get a paycheck for this stuff. It's all volunteer when it's stuff at the association level, right? So tell me the value there for you?
So I think I have to take it back to the former broker owners. He was just such a mentor to me, helping me. I was a young guy just trying to get my feet wet in real estate, and just the mentorship, the time that he put in, he really wanted me to be successful. And then at one point they were moving back to Oklahoma, and he said it's time for you to take the reins. And so that's how I became the broker owner of the company. And through that, as I bought agents on, you know, as a as a person who just went through it with someone else, learning how to be a realtor the right way, it was like, hey, we're a boutique brokerage. Our name means a lot. Let's surround ourselves with like-minded people. So, you started to teach and coach the realtors that came in under me. And, for a lot of people, they get motivated by making money. And I remember when I became the owner, I did make a substantial amount of money compared to before. And I found that I wasn't driven by money, that I really was driven more by helping people. And so I started getting more involved in the community. But then, like anything, leadership at the local association started tapping you like, hey, why don't you volunteer for this and help out with that? But it's crazy. It's kind of backwards for me, because where I really got started was on the state level at Florida Realtors with the RE Bar Camp. A lot of leaders there had told me, hey, you need to take over this. You should be more a part of this. And so that's where they said I should apply for the Leadership Academy for Florida Realtors. And so I did apply for them, and I did not get it my first year. And they said, we love everything about you, but you need more local association activity. And so that's when I dove in locally, doing the local Leadership Academy. And then I end up chairing our Realtor Political Action Committee for 2 years in a row. So that's kind of how I got jump started volunteering.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful. I think it's always cool to see somebody really really digging in, and because sometimes, Stas, I think this, sometimes there are agents that just don't have those same thoughts and feelings that you're kind of conveying today, right? That yeah, sure, we all want to be compensated for what we do, but ultimately it's how many families you help. I mean, I think that's the key thing. I think that when I hear an agent talk that way, that it's about my community, and I was able to serve 37 families this year. That's the win, right? Yeah, I think that's it.
So I preach this a lot. We as realtors, we make money when we sell homes in our communities, in our areas, but I believe in win-win relationships. There's give and take, and we can't always be takers. And so we have to give back to the community, to show them that we appreciate them. It's no different than when they used to farm land. I know the Native Americans back in the day, they would farm one land and give it a break, and then farm the other land, so that way the other land could regenerate. Us giving back to the community was a big deal for me. And then that's when I started caring even more about my profession, and that's when I became an instructor. As a Florida Realtors instructor, you have to audition for the specific classes you want to teach. You have to audit the class first, then interview to be an instructor. And so a lot of the classes that I take are basically the stuff that I'm very efficient at. I am a waterfront property specialist. I teach that class. So I do build homes on the water here in the area. And then the other one is I have 2 broker courses, a Step It Up brokers course, and then part of GRI. So a lot of the stuff that I teach is actually stuff that I'm very efficient on, because it's stuff that I do on a daily basis. And so that to me, especially the broker course, teaching people who either want to be brokers or already are brand new brokers, what they need to do to run a successful brokerage, and the do's and don'ts. So, the profession to me really was a big deal. Like, okay, everyone wants to complain about it, but I rather be part of the solution. And so that's kind of how my outlook on it came to fruition.
Yeah. I'm going to bring this up. It's you can say, Bill, we don't need to talk about that. But, August 2024 will never be forgotten in the world of real estate. It's when everything was set in motion regarding the buyer broker compensation and how that has changed in the world of U.S. real estate. It's been quite different around the world, pretty much away from us, and I guess Canada for the most part. But as a broker, you've had to have some conversations with your staff. And as somebody who works at the state level, you've had access to a lot of great conversations, I'm sure, as well from other people. Is there something you can say about this brave new world that that all of us in the industry are in now?
You know, when I what I tell people is in real estate is ever changing. I mean, what we were doing in the 2012s, 2013 timeframe, we weren't doing in the 2018, 2019. And then it changed
Mm-hmm.
all over again during the pandemic in 2020 and 2021. And the way they were doing real estate in 2005, they weren't doing it in 2008. Everything was shutting down. It was hot fire in '05, '06, turning in '07, '08, '09. It was bankruptcy. It was
Mm-hmm.
foreclosures. So in an ever evolving industry, we are never going to have the easy road. There's always going to be something in real estate that's going to shake it up for us, with new companies trying to reinvent the wheel and either focus more on e-buyers. To me, this is just another one of those hiccups that we're going to battle through. Us realtors are resilient. This is just a stepping stone in a different direction. It is a bit of a change. Our job is to obviously protect the consumer as best as possible. But
Mm-hmm.
in this situation, we're dealing with, navigating how we can protect ourselves with the right paperwork, the right documentation, and then letting the consumer know that we're not going anywhere. We're still going to provide the services. We just need to find a workaround that leads to a win-win relationship, with
Yeah.
everyone. And so that's the beauty of our realtors, especially you've been to Florida realtors. Some of the best and brightest realtors in the state come together and we figure it out. We sit down, we figure it out. We don't panic. We look at the changes and we take it head on. And we really do have the members in mind as well as our client and our consumers.
Yeah, I liked how many times you said consumer in that answer. I really do. Because look, ultimately, that's what it's all about. Um, and then you do everything right by them, and it'll all work out for everybody. That's great. Love that.
Yeah.
Stas, I'm going to give you the almost impossible question here as we kind of get close to wrapping up. What do you see? What's your crystal ball hold? And I'll let you be. We'll go with your market. What do you think's coming next for Southwest Florida?
Well, I think that especially in my area, you're going to see a little bit more development. I think that some of the bills that have been passed in the past year and a half, you're seeing that they know that we need more infrastructure. They know that we need more workforce housing. I think that we will start to see a bit more development in my area, especially some of these parcels that have been sitting there that actually could change the landscape of the city of Punta Gorda in itself, giving it a stronger commercial tax base. I can see the transition of more people wanting to live full time in Punta Gorda rather than the part time. I see the job market soaring here in Punta Gorda with some of this development that could come in the next 3 years. And I think that tone was set by that Sunseeker Resort that just opened up December of 2023. It has shown that the area is ready to take the next step, take it to the next level. And so I do believe that we will have a lot of creative development come into town. And I think that it's not only going to bolster the area, but I think it'll also blend in with the quaint small town that we have.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it better than that, but I really do see a bright future here in Punta Gorda, and I look forward to the change.
That's great. Stas, I'm going to let you go here, but you got to answer the final question I've asked every guest since day one, and that is, what one piece of advice would you give a new agent just getting started?
It's kind of funny, and I feel like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth because I did it very, very late, and I only did it so that I can teach it. And that is, I would recommend that they go through the GRI program, the Graduate
Mm.
Real Estate Institute. I think that realtors should get their GRI. I got my GRI in 2022 because you can't teach it unless you have it. And so I ran through it really quickly because they needed instructors to teach the 300 series of GRI, 301 and 302. But when I went through it, I was just like, wow, there's a lot of great information in here for newer realtors getting in the game. I really do believe that it's a little bit expensive, but I think that if they can piece it up, doing it here and there, I believe that if you're a new realtor, you should really get your GRI. And then the second part to that advice is application. Everyone says, "Oh, I know," but they don't apply it. Just applying some of the things that you've learned could really change and shape your business, because once you apply what you've learned, there's somewhat of a system there that you start to develop. And everything in real estate needs to be tracked. I mean, documents need to be tracked. Everything you do needs to be trackable. And you don't know what you're doing wrong and how to make the right tweaks if you're not tracking it and you're not applying what you've learned. So that's what I would tell a new agent.
I love it. I love it. Stas, if someone wants to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do that?
You can email me at Stas, STAS, at Erin, ERIN, Catron, CATRON.com. And then my phone number, 941-209-1561. And then you can find me on all social media at Broker Stas.
Stas, this has been great. We waited way too long. This is just so you know, this is episode 399.
Yeah, I seen that. I just before the 400th episode.
Just right before, yeah. So I have someone very special next week. You'll have to check that out. It's a close friend of mine who's going through a struggle that he's found a solution that's amazing. So, anyways, and this has been great. I really appreciate it. I'm going to find you next time I go through Punta Gorda. I'd love to kind of have you just show me around a little bit. I'd love to see some of the stuff that the locals know, not the guys racing from Fort Myers to St. Pete. So sound good?
Yeah, come on down. I'll show you all around, man. It's a great little town. We've got some real good hidden gems. Man, I really do appreciate you having me on here. It has been a long time. I'm glad I got to get on here before the Fair World Tour happens.
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming next year. So, but no, I appreciate it. Appreciate your time, and we will be chatting again, I'm sure, at a convention or conference somewhere soon. So thanks for being here.
No problem.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Sessions. Please head over to ratethispodcast.com/RE sessions to leave a review or a rating, and subscribe to the Real Estate Sessions podcast at your favorite podcast listening app.